Hi, it's Barry here again from Turning the Page, and today's topic is about helping someone too much. And we can all sometimes just help people a bit too much, and I'm thinking of someone that I knew, and she was helping this person, and it was just a bit too much. And the person she was helping just didn't mind one little bit. In fact, he was very adept at throwing guilt trips and manipulations to keep her supporting his lifestyle. And it wasn't that she was doing anything wrong. Many people thought she was so wonderful in how she took care of him and others, and she was so generous and kind. What a lovely Christian woman, they said. But underneath that mission of martyrdom, there was a dying soul. Life was being sucked out of her, and resentment was taking a foothold. For all the help she was giving out, nothing really was coming back in. And she had hoped for something different, but now the patterns of her support had been formed, and expectations of her compliancy were normalized. She was a slave to the foolishness of others and not a servant of truth. Now, in the Bible, there's this fascinating story of an interplay between a husband and wife. The husband, Nabal, he was a really successful and wealthy farmer. But in the Bible, he was described as being crude and mean in all his dealings and ill-tempered. And his servants actually lived in fear of him. And when they had bad news for him, they were too afraid of him. Instead, they told his wife Abigail. Now, Abigail, in contrast, she is described as being sensible and beautiful. She was one that the servants felt safe with. Most likely, she probably nudged and prodded and Nabal into making good decisions and kept him from making bad ones. And so the story goes that Nabal's flocks and shepherds had been protected by David and his men. And David actually wanted some payment for his work. So he sent some of his messengers for asking for payment. Nabal, in his arrogance and foolishness, just refused David outright and was actually really nasty and horrible to him. He was just unwilling to be generous towards David's needs. David was absolutely furious, and he was going to come with 400 men and attack Nabal. He was going to wipe him out. He was so angry. So word of this sort of gets to Abigail, Nabal's wife, and she intervenes with sensible and beautiful wisdom. She meets David and his men before he gets to Nabal and calms the whole situation down. And when she returns to Nabal, he is having a party. He's like a king. But she waits until the next morning when he is sober and tells him of what had occurred, what had gone down. In his shock, he has a stroke, and 10 days later, he's dead. Now, as I read the story, I wonder how many times had Abigail and the servants, how many times they've tiptoed around this angry and arrogant Nabal. How many similar stories were in the background that had enabled this fool to remain in his foolishness? And look, hey, we all do this, don't we? We tiptoe around some people not wanting to rock the boat and cause upset. But all along, there can be a growing resentment and bitterness. It can eat away at your soul. And even Abigail considered Nabal a wicked and ill-tempered man, a fool, not worthy of paying attention to. So there was something happening in her soul around how she thought about her husband. And that's actually what she said to David. Look, we don't know exactly what kept Abigail and the servants enabling Nabal's bad behavior. Perhaps it is fear. Often it is. And what we do know is that Abigail told it like it was. She told the story. And the story had the natural impact it needed to have. Natural consequences. What is a natural consequence? Is anything that happens naturally. Look, if you go out in the rain, you're going to get wet. When you don't eat, you're going to get hungry. If you don't pay your bills, such as Nabal, then the debt collectors will come. You reap what you sow, and you don't reap unless you sow. And when we intervene and protect people from the natural consequences of their actions, nobody learns anything. People often keep doing foolish things, and then when we intervene and they keep a crop different, they reap a crop from what they would have grown naturally out of their decisions. So I'll read that again. People often keep doing foolish things, and then when we intervene, they reap a crop different from what would have naturally grown up out of those decisions. Much of our kindness, I believe, is actually keeping people in systems of dependency. Look, one of my favourite quotes about change is this one from John Maxwell. He says that people change when they hurt enough they have to, learn enough that they want to, and receive enough that they are able to. I love that quote. Hurt enough they have to. Look, often it isn't until that the pain is so unbearable that there is a realization that change is needed. Look, consider the prodigal eating the pig food. It wasn't until then that he actually came to his senses. Learn enough that they want to. Look, it's all very well knowing you have to change or being told you have to change, but what is the process for changing? What is the motivation? And what is the carrot? What is the stick? Often it is only when we learn some new information, have a roadmap, and get some instruction that change can actually take place. The final one is receive enough, that they are able to change. Now, I really like this because it talks to me about the need for encouragement and support. Someone cheering you on the millimeter movements. But all three of those factors need to happen for people to change. Let's get pragmatic about some helping, all right? Look, we can get so easily swamped down in the emotions of our problems. The fears and anxieties become like giants towering over our lives. We cower and live in fear of the unknown. At times we need to get very logical and pragmatic about the situations we face. Pragmatic, well, that means to deal with things sensibly and realistically in a way that is based on practical rather than on theoretical considerations. It's nuts and bolts, what can be done, what can't be done. And this is why I really love the problem-solving process. It takes the problem out of the emotional realm and into the practical realm. And when we become quite pragmatic about the problems, we can then find practical solutions. Those practical solutions actually emerge. Now, I'm soon going to be developing a course about problem solving, how to do it. So I'm going to have some little videos and workbooks and sheets and so on and so on that can help you learn how to problem solve with people. And it's all very practical stuff, and I've used this many times with many people and found it really effective. And I'd like to share that with you. And what I'd like you to do is, if you've got some ideas and thoughts around problem solving that you'd like me to know about, or some questions or comments, just email me at barry@turningthepage.co.nz, and I'd just really like to get in a conversation with you about those things. And if you come over to the website and read this particular blog post, I've actually got a little video of me talking about this course. But here's a few quotes for you to consider. God doesn't always save us from the consequences of our actions. But he doesn't celebrate our pain either. He doesn't ask us to minimize it or pretend it isn't there. Instead, he offers his love and unending compassion as we walk through whatever we're facing. That's Andre Kolber. God has solutions for people who admit they have problems. I like that, Larry Crabb. Our primary purpose is not to use God to solve our problems, but to move through our problems toward finding God. Larry Crabb. You cannot save everyone. Some people are going to destroy themselves no matter how much you try to help them. It's so true. That's from Bryant McGill. Are you a rescuer? A person allowed to avoid the consequences of their faulty decisions is also sentenced to constantly repeat their mistakes, for they did not have to learn from them. That's David Riddell. Whose problem is it? Don't own your child's, or what I'm saying also, or anyone else's problem for them. They must experience the consequences of their faulty choices. David Riddell. And don't punish people. Just let the consequences of their choices do your punishing for you. David Riddell. Here's some questions. What problems do you need to get more pragmatic about? 2. Why do we take on others' problems as if they were our own? And 3. What did you think about that quote from John Maxwell? How could it be applied to your life? Hey, I hope you found this helpful and informative, and that it's giving you something to think about and question, are you helping them too much? And what could good help actually starts to look like by actually problem solving it and working on some plans and ideas on how to sort out the problems. Hey, if you'd like to email me, I'd just love to hear from my listeners and my readers and my viewers. It's barry@turningthepage.co.nz. That's BARRY @turningthepage.co.nz. And just a big shout out and thank you to those people who support Turning the Page via Patreon and other ways through Buy Me a Coffee or whatever. But I'd just really like to thank you, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. And until next week, see you then. Bye.